Thank you, Architect Mahwish. That was a very captivating presentation. Our next paper is For a City, Exploring Spatial Production and Community. This paper will be presented by our second foreign presenter, Architect Waqar Aziz. He is a practicing architect, academic, and head of architecture at Concepts Institute of Information and Technology, Lahore. Being part of the Pakistani diaspora, his work revolves around the fractures in the ideas of globalism. His themes combine a sense of nostalgia and regional concerns, yet employing critical detachment in a quest to investigate the ontological state of contemporary living. Please, sir, we would like to have you on stage.
First of all, thank you so much for having me here. It's an honor to be part of IAPEX and the Speakers Forum after many a number of years. I was just told that I met quite a lot of people here 6 years ago in a similar forum, and I just could not believe it because it just seems like yesterday. But still, first of all, I think right now I feel and definitely look like something out of Zehra's pictures. Funny enough, what I would like to present today is somewhat a continuation of the same theme that we are trying to explore in the team collaborative. So when I saw the call for the paper, I think I was immediately struck by this one quote from Zehra Aziz that was mentioned as part of the call. And I would just like to kind of read the first few lines of the quote because I think they're just absolutely beautiful. The city is man's most consistent and on the whole his most successful attempt to remake the world that he lives in more after his heart's desire. I think this quote or the sentence just stuck with me as I was thinking about our cities. And what I would like to present today is a three-part sketch of an idea more than anything else. So in the first part, I would like to kind of look at what a city is, looking at it from more of an economic perspective, trying to look at what the structure of the city itself is. Then, in the second part, what I would like to do is, from that economic analysis of production of things that happens in the city, I would like to kind of demonstrate its effect on the cultural sphere, or how cultures are created from an economic mode of production. And then, in the final part, I would leave you with just this word, porosity, as advocacy to change some of the things that I will be talking about that we see in other environments today. So in part one, again another beautiful line that I love very much. So, change the world, said Marx. Change life, said Rimbaud. For us, the two tasks are identical. I think the crux of my presentation is exactly that it's not the infrastructure, it's not the physical form of the city itself, it's life and the form or the infrastructure all combined. There are multiple kind of levels on which we have to operate as designers, as people, that I shall be advocating for. But before we go there, let's just for a moment recapture what do I mean by this economic cycle or economic force in a city that dictates the city itself. So I will lend a lot of these things from David Harvey and his Right to the City, at least the first part of his article. So Harvey says that essentially capitalism derives the form of the city, or even the formation of the city itself. So the idea that a city is not really a natural production of trade and commerce, but it's a production of the surplus of an economic system. Before we go into this term, what do we mean by this idea of surplus, let's just very basically define what capitalism is itself. So in capitalism, we have a person who has money. The only advantage that this person has is the capital itself. And he decides to invest it into an industry. The industry produces something which is sold and a profit is made. In the second step of this very simple cycle of production, the profit is the value of plus the initial investment. So it comes back to the person who invested this whole capital in the first place. So here is the Faustian dilemma. The dilemma is, now you have, let's say you started with 100 rupees and now you have 200 rupees. What do you do with that money? So, like every good businessman, he puts 150 in his pocket and decides to invest 50 again in the cycle. So what you do is, this whole wheel of production starts spinning faster and faster and faster because more and more money is going into it, which seems really good when it comes to production and cities and things, but there are some side effects. The first side effect is that this guy is not making those things himself. He is taking people who don't have money, who don't have capital, and paying them to work for him. So essentially a class is created. So what we see happening is there's a class of workers and then a class of managers that is created by the same cycle. Here is the problem. The problem is that you have divided a city into social classes by this system of production, and you have created a big dilemma. The dilemma is that there is money, and money is making more money. And what do we do with that money? So a person who invested the money is getting richer and richer and richer. It doesn't make sense to divide or make that or give that money away freely. So it gets concentrated. So not only you create classes, but the rich class gets richer and the poor class gets poorer. So far, we can all say this is how things are. It's no problem, it's just an economic cycle. The problem is that this is not the only thing is happening. We know that money is power. So the next thing that happens is, for any society or a city or a country to happen, you need political control. You need some kind of power play in the whole equation. And that, together, will create social control. And social control, we all know, is important because otherwise we're not going to be a community, we won't be able to work as a system. And that is not the point I'm contesting in this presentation. What I'm trying to put through is this one way of producing social control more than anything else. And this thing that we see or we talk about, capitalism, that we've been talking about since 50s, and seems to be a very Western issue, it's not really, actually is an Eastern issue, is not really true anymore. Just look around yourself. The whole world is dominated by the same economic system of production. And there is no cultural divide in this kind of economic control and political control at the moment. So here we are. What do we do with this? What I would like to suggest is that this argument of Harvey seemed to be a little, one-sided. It seemed that there's nothing we can do. The industrialist is going to keep on making industries. We're going to keep on producing money, and we have nothing to do with this whole problem, although it's no solution. Luckily, Deleuze and Guattari, in their article, provide a better definition of how a city works. Like I said so far, this definition of how a city is made, how it works, is a very singular, linear, one-sided approach to thinking about the city. So what do they say? They say, imagine we're going to look at what is a town and what is a state. So imagine that there's, 4 towns, and they are horizontally spread on geography, anywhere in the world. What happens is that economics start deriving some kind of connections between them. So they start connecting with each other. Now that kind of a connection is a very different kind of connection. That is a connection which fosters a more dependency amongst towns. Towns collaborating with towns for deterritorialization of the power. You cannot make a law or you cannot make something that is in favor of one town and against the other town, because then the whole system will fail. There won't be a symbiotic connection between them. So this is how a small town, or let's say a rural area, will survive. Whereas cities or state in this way is very different in terms of its power structure. How do we make states? We make states by concentrating ideas. Well, if you want to say what is Pakistan, you have to say what is India. And what is India is not what we are. So we're Muslims, they are not. We're good, they are not. So you cannot connect them. You have to separate them. And this is one way, or the current way, of making state ideology. So ultimately what happens is that state politics is a way of segregation. It's of internal cohesion. Therefore, you do not have any connective cohesion between things. And that kind of a power defies connectivity between different states, between different ideologies, isolating us into making ourselves the most important thing, not interdependent with the rest of the things. So let's just connect these two definitions together, economies and mode of productions of capitalism, and this beautiful definition or dialectics of what is a town and what's a state. What essentially we get is that cities are not really like Harvey. They are not simple productions of capitalism. There's always contending forces in a city. It's more like a phenomenology of sense. It's like this thing in which there are all kind of forces countering each other, working with each other, working against each other. Sometimes the capitalism wins, sometimes the egalitarian mode wins, but this keeps on happening. This war keeps on happening. And this is a more realistic picture of what we see in our society right now as well. So that brings us to part 2, and I will go back to my thing I love to say about capitalism. In the time of Napoleon Bonaparte, now I'm coming back to this term that I started using called surplus value. You have money, what do you do with that money? When you take money and you align it with political power, then the mandate of the political power is to spend that money. If you can't spend your money will lose value. So what do we do as planners, as designers, as architects? We make new ways for you to spend your money. But you, don't get me wrong, means all of you. I mean very few of you who actually have money and who are making more and more money. And this is exactly what happened back in, I think it was 1840 something. I'm sorry, I do not remember the date. It's the time of Napoleon Bonaparte. When he took control, the war was going really bad. And he understood this problem of industrialization, problem of capital. When you have too much money, you need to create ways of making money. So we have Haussmann becoming one of the chief urban designers of Paris. And what does he do? He does this beautiful thing, which is to cut Paris up. Champs-Élysées, new city of light, beautiful little restaurants, boutiques, designer cafes. Why? Because then you can go and spend your money there, right? And this is not Paris. This is Lahore. And then this is our mandate. We make beautiful architecture, we make beautiful cities. For whom? For people who have money. Because we have to. If we don't, then everybody is going to lose money. And, there's no way out of it, right? This is what we're seeing right now. We're seeing the discontent that I think the heart's desire that Azra Park is talking about is, I think, something like this. It is an indication of what we're doing over here. And the same thing goes in terms of how we are developing our cities, in terms of these beautiful housing developments. Food Street was not good enough, so let's make it beautiful, yuppify it, then it's at least people with money can go there. They can park their Parados in the right place. And this is Paris. This is what Haussmann did as well, exactly the same thing, made it look beautiful. And I love this ad because, you know, none of these people really look like Pakistani other than the guy because of his mustache. But these are Pakistanis. So I would love an ad for the same lifestyle with the, you know, these Pakistanis being in there. But this is what we're selling. And it's not that we're just making these things up. Thank you. But we are forced, we are mandated to do stuff this way. Because these are the directions of economics, of politics, of power that we are looking at. Big City is just opening a beautiful housing scheme. This is also housing in Shalmi. But I think I'm becoming a little kind of judgmental. But I think I'm just trying to be a little judgmental because this is something that we need to hear. But at the same time, we do hear it. I came across this picture, and what I really loved about this picture is this fact that, you know, I have no clue where this is, but somewhere in Islamabad. That, you know, these pockets of people, they are not happy. We all are not happy. We do feel this thing. We do feel this kind of inequality. All of us, even with people with money, feel that there is some emptiness, this loss of heart's desire, again and again. So as a last thing, but I would like to kind of say this idea of porosity. What I meant by this word porosity is literal porosity, ideological porosity, and metaphorical porosity. This idea, create gaps, open yourself up, make some holes, so let other things in. That's, I think, the biggest problem that we have right now. You have these enclaves and pockets where you go and you feel safe. The rest of the places, not safe. Open those pockets up. Someone wrote this beautiful article called The Stranger, and the idea is exactly this, that it's not just some kind of an ethical or moral responsibility to be able to think about the other person, but it's also an advantage. Because for real meaningful development to happen, we all need to work together. If you don't know what the other person is thinking or saying, you cannot work together. And that can only happen if you create some kind of an idea of opening. Open yourself in ideologies. I think, well, I should not use this kind of examples, but I still will. I think there's some good people in India as well. And I think there's some bad people in Pakistan as well. We just have to agree to it. This is how it is. This is how it happens all over the place. The point is to not just stereotype somebody. Let's be people and let's just talk about it. So ideologically open yourself up. Not every Western thing is bad and not every Eastern thing is good. You know, let's just have a whole constructive, critical debate about these kind of things. And once again, so what we can do is literally this. These are cats, I don't know their names. They live pretty much in my house. We feed them. The idea is absurd, it's very simple, not very important. But when I think about it, it is important. How many cats do you feed? How many people do you give food to? Do you lend your money to people that you don't know? Have you ever offered tea to people that you don't know their names of? They don't even work for you. Have you done that? That is what you can do, not as a designer, but as a human being. Open yourself up. And literally open yourself up. Spend your money. Don't just make empty gestures and excuses about it. So again, affirmative action, and that perhaps could be a way to achieve our heart's desire. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Architect Mahwish Rasool is our third forum presenter to speak on introduction of the city, cases of Material Sassi, Italy. She is an architect and interior designer by profession. Currently, she is working as a department head and Assistant Professor at Indus Valley School of Art and Architecture. Alongside runs her practice by the name of M Studio, which is a collaborative studio of research, practice and design. She has participated in many international and national design conferences, to name a few: Cornell GCA, Paris Design Summit and many others. Please ma'am, we would like to have you on stage.
Assalamu alaikum everyone, and thank you so much for an amazing introduction. It's written on my picture, which is the part of the forum, that I'm a dynamic presenter. So I would like to be one, but I'm not sure about it, that am I a dynamic presenter or not. So it's quite nostalgic to be on this forum again, and I was here 6 years before, and that was my first presentation, any kind of a presentation for any kind of a forum. So I'm very, very excited that I'm back after 6 years in IAP-RIC Islamabad and Pindi chapter. So yeah. So guys, basically I'm going to talk about a case study from Italy. And basically why I have chosen to talk about this, because my research is critically about Karachi, and basically usually what I do is I deeply research about the stories and myths of a city and kind of be evaluating it again, that what are the myths and what are the realities. But now today what I've picked, it's a very different topic, and basically last year I got a chance to be here in one of the cities, and I worked on that city, and it really moved and touched my heart. And I thought that, as a topic of this presentation, I would like to, tell you a story of a city which was completely invisible few years before. And again, it's visible to the world, and it's being celebrated beautifully in 2019. So guys, as the forum topic was about city and conservation, I will present the case of Mathura Sassi, Italy. It's in the southern part of the Italy, and basically I happened to went there. Basically this is the city of Alberbello, Italy, and this is Mathura Sassi. And basically in Alberbello, Italy, I have worked on a project, and it's also a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And basically I will tell you about it later, but what I'm going to focus on is basically Mathura Sassi, a case of Italy. Can you go ahead, please? So guys, how I get there? Many of you have the questions in your mind maybe, and mostly the young people who are like, our future designers and architects always ask me that how, you have an access to go there. So I'll speak about it for a minute. So basically, I went for a training last year in 2018, and basically it was an international summer school. I was really interested to go always, and luckily I got a chance to be there in the last summer. And it was an international summer school, and it was basically on the principle of photogrammetry and architecture, which is about making drawings by clicking pictures. So it was a very for me it was a kind of a technological nightmare to be in a space where drones are flying across you. But it was lovely to understand all these dynamics and basically work for that city. So, when I went to that place, I got an access to Alberbello, Italy, and to Sassi Mathura, which I am going to present today. And basically, I invented that how there are different myths in a city, and how as an architect and a designer, you basically explore a city, and you basically view a city, and actually the myths are not true. There are many more things and layers to a city. As Waqar has likely pointed out that, it's the people who make the city rather than the infrastructure. Okay, so this was the case of Alberbello, Italy, and I just choose to show you this picture because it's also a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And basically, just to tell you a little bit about this place, there are many international competitions going on at the moment to preserve this, and there is a lot of infrastructure which is still available to readapt. So basically a potential of interior architecture and architecture came into these kind of structures which is empty, and it's not the part of the UNESCO World Heritage Perimeter, but it's basically the adjacent area to it. So a fact I just wanted to tell all the young minds is that there were 35 countries participating for a design competition organized by the same forum, the training I went into, and basically Pakistan got the winning entry, and we got the winning entry for this design. So it's just to Thank you. So just to remind the young minds that maybe we are a little behind due to our technological advancements, but I think if you think sensitively, if you think about the people, you can achieve there. So now I will basically start my presentation of city of Mathura, which is called as the cave city of Italy. And to cover its history in a quick wrap and how it's became, the cultural capital of Europe in 2019, and it was it's still one of the living cities in the world, and it's being reclaimed because it's from the Paleolithic ages, it's from the Stone Ages. So to quickly wrap up what it is all about and why it is so important and what is happening around it, I made a short video for it. So here you go, and then we can further talk about it. Please play the video now. Mathura, Italy, commonly known as the Sassi of Mathura, comprised of two districts, Cavesano and Beresano, known for its ancient cave dwellings and unique natural landscape. Mathura is located in the southern part of Italy and known to be the first ever human settlement in Italy. The city has its existence from the Paleolithic time, and it is the continuous inhabited city since its origin. The entire site is composed of the ancient city of Mathura and the park of Equestrian churches, which is in the natural landscape. The Sassi and the park of the Equestrian churches of Mathura comprises of churches, monasteries, hermitages and other buildings. The entire region covers an area of 116 hectares. It contains more than 1,500 dwellings, large number of shops, workshops and stone churches. The area inhabited in the Paleolithic era, the city started to expand in the Greek time with significant importance of city center known as civitas. And the defense walls in the city comes in the Roman era with expanded living spaces. The most elaborated stonework dates back from the Renaissance time, when many caves adorned with new facades and ceilings were extended to make vaulted rooms. The most splendid rock churches created by the Byzantine monks with splendid frescoed interiors. On the opposite side of the Rhine River is a flat plateau of Murcia are the cave landscapes. Today carved stone stairways still connect with the arches and balconies. City of Mathura saw the era of degradation, poverty and decline in the mid of 18th and the 19th century. The modern city expands along the flat terrain of Rawalpindi by developing administrative and religious buildings right where the ancient cities used resources. Resources like storage of grains, water system, the pits, barns, commonwealths and the gardens on the flat plateau, which were the crucial center of Sassi infrastructure system, was buried and belonging to new power structure. The major shift due to the laws and space allocation resources led Mathura to decay and made it a disgrace for Italy. The process reached its peak when in 1950 a special law was passed to evacuate Sassi and the process of relocation started in the modern neighborhoods. In 1950s, the site was evaluated as an important site of experimentation and innovation. Became the first city in the southern Italy to be listed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1993. Due to its outstanding universal value of rock-cut settlements date back from the Paleolithic times that illustrate significant stages of development in human history. Mathura's story of rebirth seen from its streets, its buildings and its monuments. They depict a picture of resilience, ability to inhabit decaying spaces to create a living city and save it from the process of demolition and loss. The city of Sassi developed a new culture of urban planning and cultural investment based on the three principles of infrastructure, reuse, environmental sustainability and resilience. Mathura sets an outstanding example of symbiosis between the site and the intervention of man, and with gradual reuse of buildings and adaptation of structure, the deterioration of Sassi disappeared and from an invisible city it becomes the cultural capital of Europe in 2019. The modern reuse of the Sassi historic interior has been endlessly invented. There are cave hotels, restaurants, cafes, galleries, skate clubs, meditation spas, swimming pools, art galleries and contemporary art museum. So guys, as you have a look, this is, if you work hard on a city, if you work really sensitive with the people, you can make an invisible city a living city again. So basically, I like to point out a few of the things before concluding my presentation is that, you know, the world is all about inclusive design now. I think, you know, in the 1970s and 80s, everything was being segmented into like different portions, that you are an engineer, you are an urban planner, you are a designer, you are an artist, you are an architect, and you are interior designers. So basically, every person was preoccupied that they have to just work within their segments or their segments of specialities. But the world is changing now, again. It's all about exclusive design. It's all about, you know, it's all about inclusive design, how different people can come together and work on a city. And this is exactly why Mathura has, you know, seen its rebirth. There are different urban planners, interior architects, interior designers, architects, geologists, you know, you can just name and think about different professions and then they can come and work together and make this happen. So just assume that, you know, once when the city in the 1950 was completely abandoned and there were like more wolves than people in a city, has now been considered, and it's been basically, it is the new cultural capital of Europe, and there is a lot of cultural investment is happening. It's basically putting Italy again on top of the world in terms of its urban design, architecture and interior design. As interior architecture, interior design is a kind of a profession which still has like kind of a blurring boundaries in our part of the world. I would like to take this opportunity to tell you about what is exactly happening in the world. So basically, as architects, we are a little stuck about that what is interior design, what is interior architecture, and what is architecture. Architects having degrees in specialty in design, in architecture, will come across designing more of the interior spaces in their entire life rather than, you know, designing architecture as such. So, you know, it's just to break this myth that it's all about designing spaces. Interior is all about designing for human comfort, okay? And same is the case architects do. They construct a beautiful space and then the interior designer make it a living space out of it. So, you know, I would like to tell you that these are the kind of different interior typologies I have seen in the city of Mathura when I was there and when I was studying that city. And basically, I have picked some of the different kind of typologies which we don't see in our part of a context. But the beautiful part about this is that nothing in the historic content has been touched. The same core of the stone has been maintained, and still you can still do a lot with different kind of spaces. So if you have to reinvent the city, it's not about demolishing the city. It's about, again, you know, revisiting it and basically seeing what we have and what we can use it for future. So I'll just go through a couple of slides. So basically this is a stone cave, ancient stone cave from the Paleolithic times, and it's been converted into a wellness center. And guys, how cool is that? That 9,000 years back, you know, there was a man living in this house, and then you can have the experience of that timeline. Similar is the case, and I went to that place. It's beautifully done. And it's also to tell you that, you know, nothing of the old structure has been touched. Whatever it's added with a lot of care and sensitivity. This is the Casa Nova concert hall, and we used to have our presentation over there. So, it reminded me that, you start thinking differently if you are in a space in which you are comfortable, in a space which, remind me that you still have a creative mind. Imagine working on an office which is still 9,000 years ago. So guys, I always like to, end my presentation with a new beginning, because for me it's never an end. It's always like a new beginning. For example, maybe, we have wonderful presentation when Waqar told about that it's all about humans, it's all about the sensitivity. So, I want to, make my part that maybe after seeing this presentation, some of you will start thinking differently about your own city. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Architect Mahwish. That was a very captivating presentation. Now we will proceed with the question and answer sessions. Just a few house rules before we start. The audience are requested to keep their questions short, and panelists, please keep your answers concise. Thank you. Mahwish, Ghulam, Rasool, and Architect Waqar Aziz and Architect Zehra Aziz are requested to come on the stage for the question and answer session. If anyone would like to ask the questions, they can.
You see, of course we have talked about surplus money and then it coming back into the development, physical city development, physical infrastructure development. But let me tell you one thing, that what we have been missing all over throughout has been not doing actual architectural practices since last 40 years, but I have been involved in directly and indirectly into architectural domain, working in government sector, public sector, then international organization. You see, architects have been ignoring the aspects of sustainability and the green architectural consideration, both in terms of when you think about money, when you think about developing new city, when you start thinking about the way you were telling about material, doing something or renewing something. So I think now the architectural profession need to also consider, besides building, developing infrastructure and money consideration and nexus of power politics versus architects, we need to also give more emphasis, right from the academic level and then into actual practice, thinking about green architecture, sustainability of the human living environment. So I think that we need to do more. And none of the speakers today have talked about it. We have talked about the people interaction and people sitting around and how we interact with the surroundings. But we have to also think about now protecting the environment with reference to architectural development. That's what I think now we have to be more. Because when we talk about climate change, when we talk about sustainability, so these are the major considerations we have to think about it. Because let me give you one example. If we keep on building cities like Islamabad, new cities, or expanding our cities, or moving into suburbs and going for 5 million houses, has anybody thought about the availability of water? Has anybody thought about the treatment of the wastewater? Has anybody thought about the, what you call it, transportation infrastructure, because it's square fuel, how you can make it people friendly. So there are so many aspects. I can keep on talking, but this is my thank you.
I have a question to Zehra. What sort of responses did you get from?
When I showed you an image of when we were performing at IAP Park, a lot of most of the episodes that we have done, a way of documenting them is not just by photographs, but it's also by public accounts of what the audience, the accident audience sees or experiences or thinks when we're performing out in public spaces. And for example, at the park, a lot of people thought that we were maybe doing something for media and we were shooting a tea commercial for a tea company. A lot of other people thought that we were doing some kind of theatre. And we documented their responses, we take interviews, and we sort of give them that opportunity or show them a new way of experiencing spaces outside in the open. At other times at the Metro bus, we actually had a person who was walking by. She was walking from Beverly Center, is close to the Shahid station, and she was walking by towards her office, and she stopped for a little while, and she actually decided to come join us since we had an extra chair. So it was 3 of us sitting, and Waqar was served tea, so we had an empty chair, and she came and she sat with us and she had tea with us at that moment. So it's really interesting, and it keeps changing from location to location. Yeah.
Mahwish, my name is Waqar. I'd like to ask a question. You have a lot of exposure now, traveling to Europe a lot. How do you see what you experienced the last few times that you've been there and to study Europe as an amazing case study to what Pakistan is doing in terms of conservation, especially if you look at the recent example of the Custom House and others done by Yasmin Lali and others like Waqar and Khawaja. How do you see yourself, what you studied around Europe compared to what Pakistan is doing?
If I have to put it like in a sentence, I think there is a lot of absence of common people. Whatever has been done as the case in Pakistan at the moment, I think they are brilliant efforts, but still there is an absence and sensitivity from the local people. The cases I have been studied, visited, and also worked as far as the case of Edward Bello was concerned, in which we won the prize as well. The first and the foremost thing was to connect with people and exactly what they want in their city. Because in every city, there will be different kind of cultures, there will be different kind of dreams. There can be different kind of, how can you say that? Every city has a different kind of emotion altogether. It's not necessary that what you want will be the same as the people in Madeira wants for their city. So as far as, case of Madeira or Ghulam is concerned, or the other cities which I visit in the past year, which has been Zehra, just to tell you an interesting fact, Zehra was the first Muslim civilization in Italy, and now it's being handed over to Christians again. And the kind of, things has been converted at that time and created at that time, I think that also belongs to our heritage, but we don't talk about it. But I feel that as far as, coming back to the question, as far as the case of Pakistan is concerned, I think we need to be more connected as far as the different professions are concerned. Because an artist has to, give a lot of things when the architect is designing the space. And you can see, even little small details, which has been a work of, a combined effort. What I feel at the moment is that whatever is happening is at a scale that, the common people, even the architecture fraternity, or even the artist and the designer fraternity never get to know about it. So I think this is the case which is missing. And I think second important thing is that I think we are extremely impressed, you can say, by whatever is happening in the West. And we have started forgetting that what our cultural root is and what is more important for us to sustain. Whether it's our tradition, whether it's our building envelope, and whether it's about our people, our folk, our culture. So I think this is the thing which was missing, which is still missing in Pakistan.
Kindly can we wrap up, please? We'll take one last question for architect Waqar. Okay.
Can we have 2 questions? 2 last questions.
Okay, sure.
One comment.
Okay, sure.
My question, I'm architect Ali Zafar Qazi, my question is for Zehra, and it's probably, just adding on to what Akil Saab said, that when you sort of have your sort of gatherings, the little tea parties at these places that are public places, and the events that have happened, very diverse and very political in nature at times, your narrative, how well does the crowd understand? I mean, who is your audience? Obviously, for us, we can see it happening and we can see what you're trying to do with this. But I mean, ultimately, who are you sort of, sort of showing your work to and addressing your work to? That's maybe Waqar can also sort of, since he's been a part of this, add to it.
Hello. Okay. Well, I think we'll do a combined answer for that. The idea was that we wanted to kind of cross this divide between classes. So our audience was supposed to be everybody and anybody who's there. Now, how do you do that? You do that with, you can only do that if you take the script out, you take the story out, you take the language out. So the idea was what is happening is the thing, that's it. So what you're supposed to take out of it is what you take out of it, just like a painting. So what we did, and what Zehra, when she was talking about the piece that we did on the lake, we had a very diverse kind of a reaction, if I remember correctly. There were some people who were happy to see us. There are some people who were not happy to see us. There are some people who thought we are snobs. And there were some people who thought we were just hilarious. So the point was, take whatever you want out of it. The idea was to disrupt the reality as we see it.
I'll just add to his answer. So a lot of people perceive it based on their cultural and their background, and so sometimes people think that because in some of the works it's just 3 women and Waqar is missing, so they think that we're feminists and this is some kind of activism and we're breaking gender roles. But that is not the purpose. The purpose is to really explore public space and see the personas that we enact. That is something that we have to do to create that anomaly. So these white fabric that we're wearing, it's cotton, and and Sabahat with the helmet on her head, and myself in a sherwani, and so these are roles that are part of history. And this activity of having tea has sort of evolved along time in a certain way, and we highlight that. As well as it is a small effort of activism, in taking or placing ourselves in public space in that spot and leaving a residue of that moment in that space and time. So I hope your question was answered. Yes.
Can I just make a comment? Sirs? Zehra or Waqar, I think this is absolutely, all 3 presentations were amazing. But your presentation, which I want to talk about, is I feel a very important place-making activity which you are doing through the tea thing. बहुत सी चीज़ों की उसकी interpretation हो सकती है, but the fact, the way that you draw attention to public space and how it can be used and appropriated, I think is very important. I don't have a question, but I would like to make a request that if आप इस चीज़ को छोड़े नहीं, I know कि आपकी team separate होगी, but maybe in Lahore, Islamabad, wherever you are, you can take auxiliary teams and please draw attention to public sphere. I mean, I think I see it as a very small act of placemaking. Please don't stop. Thank you very much.
I thank you very much for your presentation. Really, I like each of you, what you present, starting with the tea event. I mean, how you create out of tea event some kind of a social, let's say, interactive with but I was missing, let's say, a group of society who are the kids. I mean, how kids are interacting with your, or let's say, intermediate kids, 10 years old, 12, but these are people who are, these are the level of society who are very creative, very emotional. They have no restrictions. They haven't got any kind of pre-judgment about what you are doing. Did you try? Because I think this is one of the very most important. Because kids are those who pull you to. Because we did this similar, let's say, experience in some of my projects. Kids become the one who attack people to go to that place, regardless who is there. Did you try this?
Something very interesting happened. So we were able to interact with a lot of children in some of the places, for example at the metro and at the airport. But when we were performing for larger groups of people at the Literature Festival in Islamabad, and during the performance we also have some snacks on the table, biscuits and sandwiches and things like that. And the kids, I remember this group, 2 or 3 of them, and during the performance they just walked up to us, whereas everybody thought that there was this invisible line that they couldn't cross, all the older people. And these kids came and they took the biscuits from the table. So it was interesting, because when we saw the documentation afterwards, they're also part of the performance in a way. Yeah. So yeah, maybe we should just do one just for kids and see what happens. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Just last comment from her, also a question about, I like the presentation of building cities, I mean the industry. And also I assume that we are following according to the capitalism era. The cities become like, as if you are manufacturing a city, not building up cities. This is one of the dilemma. And I think this is one of the, let's say, phenomena of our time, that cities become like a car industry. You know, the build a city and put people inside. Not to put it in according to time, in increments, so that people can be more interactive. They can learn from the force. They can revise the whole system of city growth, instead of having to give them, to provide them a huge area which will be built within 3 or 4 years and then sell them to the users. Like what happens in our region, I mean, we are suffering from this kind of projects where they are seed, and then behind this wall you build this huge investment, and suddenly you open it for the public. So that's why I feel that we are really in the age of industry. Even our cities become industrialized, not built up.
Nimra has asked me to now close the session, and she's indicated you to say something, so at least we can write it up. So thank you for the presentation. On behalf of Dr. Samra, Halisa, Nambasa, myself, we are all available for the academic team. And so please, we are all done, guys. So do invite us. Thank you.
IAPRIC to come up on the stage to present shields and certificates to our foreign presenters. Firstly, Architect Salman Mansoor, Architect Suhail Awad, Architect Naeem Pasha, and Architect Gulgreen Shah, and Architect Sam. Stage as well, please. Architect Kareem Siddiqui, please. You're requested on the stage. Firstly, we have Architect Mahwish Rasool. She will be receiving the shield and certificate.
directing all of this.
Next up, we have architect Zehra Aziz. Next up, we have architect Waqar Aziz. Thank you so much for all the fellows of IAP and RIC. And thank you all, ladies and gentlemen, for your participation. Next up, I would like to request the representative of Zehra Aziz Group, Dilar Ahmed, GM Marketing, the main sponsors of our expo, to say a few words. Zehra Aziz Group is the largest wood-based panel industry player in Pakistan, producing MDF and particle board with the most modern state-of-the-art plant, equipment and experienced human resource. They are setting the highest standards of product quality. Zehra Aziz has the distinction of owning Pakistan's largest and most advanced manufacturing plant in Pakistan. Please say your question on the stage.
My name is Bilal Ahmadi and I represent Zehra Aziz. Thank you very much. जो सारी चीज़ें मैंने इंफॉर्मेशन दे रही थी वो आपने बोल दी. I am really honored to be a part of this very prestigious event, and I am thankful to the management of IAP and chapter Islamabad and Rawalpindi. हमने अभी last week में इस्लामाबाद रावलपिंडी चैप्टर को एंटरटेन किया था, इनवाइट किया था अपने थिन लाइन प्लांट पे, which is one of the state-of-the-art plant in Pakistan. Only 16 exist in the world like हमारे इस plant के लिए. तो मैं उसके लिए भी thankful हूँ जी आप सबका कि आप सब लोग वहाँ तशरीफ लाए, और it was really an honor for us, and it is an honor to be the part of this event as well. Thank you very much.